Hi, my name is Olivia, and today I'm going to be addressing the question, what is global citizenship and why is it important? Before directly answering that question, I want to present a brief history of citizenship and define the terms of citizen, globalization, and global citizen just so everything makes a little more sense. So, the concept of citizenship and as such democracy came to fruition in ancient Greece, the most well documented being Athens in 7th century BC. The lead up to introducing more inclusive citizenship and what most would consider democracy to Athens was the mounting tensions over power between the ruling body of archons, aka aristocratic elites. This power struggle affected the laboring class of Athens, who as a result began to receive more severe treatment and enslavement from these frustrated elites. The laboring class looked to Solon, another aristocrat with lawmaking power. They pleaded with him to fight on their behalf in the political arena while also helping to diffuse the power struggle between the other aristocrats. This resulted in Solon reforming many policies adversely affecting the laboring class, but more importantly, writing into law that all free Athenians who owned property were given citizenship and thus able to participate in political assemblies. Although, as suggested, the law Solon wrote meant that free Athenian citizens were comprised only of Athenian adult males with property, a relatively small percentage of the total population. The remaining population, women, slaves, and foreign residents, weren't eligible for citizenship and so had no true voice at the time. Citizenship as we know it now is a lot different. Although unfortunately there are still restrictions as to who can vote in many nation states, even relatively progressive and advanced nations like the US. Those considered mentally incompetent typically have no voice. Further, for many nation states, there's also the case of mobility, where even if somebody has the mental capacity to vote, they have no means of transportation or can be homeless and thus ineligible to enroll to vote in the first place. In some cases, ex-convicts or those with previous felony charges permanently lose the right to vote. So now I want to define citizen. The general definition of a citizen, according to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, entails that a citizen is a member of a political community, in most cases a nation state, who enjoys the rights and assumes the duties of membership to this state. Essentially, all people are citizens of whichever state they're born into or joined via migration, because in most cases people cannot be left stateless. Some states globally still have systems of government that reflect absolutist forms of rule, in which people are subjects of tyranny with limited human agency. So the duties of citizen, which I'm soon to detail, is actually in reference to citizens with the freedoms and rights most often afforded under democratic states. So, in most modern democratic states, typically states that industrialized or went through modernization early, there are similar basic sets of tenets or duties that are to be fulfilled by the citizen. Generally, you must obey the laws of the state, enroll to vote, pay taxes, participate in jury duty if called upon, and defend the state if the need arises, usually in times of war. Being a good citizen, however, is not just following the preordained duties of citizenship. Democracies such as the US have suggested voluntary responsibilities that are central to democracy, such as voting. So, though this is an official duty in the US, they put forth that by voting, citizens have a voice in their government and help ensure that the democratic representative system of government is maintained. This also staying informed about issues and candidates, community involvement, helping out people in the community, offering your knowledge to local organizations, practicing tolerance, so respecting people's opinions, ethnic backgrounds, so on, and passing on good citizenship so that future generations will be part of the democratic process. Most of these suggested responsibilities are valid. It's hard to maintain peaceful coexistence in any state where opinions are not respected, where there's a lack of education or information to understand the democratic process, and if you're isolated from the community and society in which you intend to function. These voluntary duties are all important and applicable when considering the definition of a global citizen, which, according to Open Democracy, is someone who identifies with being part of an emerging world community and whose actions contribute to building this community's values and practices. The values that global citizens share are relatively straightforward and ascend any true cultural, state, or religious allegiance. Open Democracy puts forth a list based upon what world leaders have been advocating for decades, being human rights, religious pluralism, gender equity, the rule of law, environmental protection, sustainable worldwide economic growth, poverty alleviation, prevention and cessation of conflicts between countries, elimination of weapons of mass destruction, humanitarian assistance, and preservation of cultural diversity. With these values in mind, global citizens are those who vote and act for the good of all people. So why is being a global citizen important? It's important to be a global citizen as we live in a world that is subject to globalization, which is the convergence of cultures brought about by continuing improvements in access to technologies and media spanning the world. This means you're going to interact and connect with more and more people from diverse backgrounds and classes. Being a global citizen is important because in most cases, when coming from a democratized and free country, you have the means to help others who lack these basic human rights, and further lack many of the economic and technological advantages we have. And though it may not be possible to truly integrate or concur over national or cultural traditions through globalization, it's still possible to be a global citizen, because so many of the issues our world faces cannot be tackled alone. For example, there's no way in which one single country can fix and reverse climate change. Being a global citizen is important because by acting politically and putting your voice out for the betterment of global society, it strengthens the global institutions which provide aid and research into fixing these issues. And from whichever land you hail, this places accountability on your state to act further. In essence, being a global citizen is important because you help to set the standards of human rights. You create a voice for those who cannot speak through one means or another. You seek the best for the environment and its collective people, and you create a society that holds all states accountable for their actions in this world. To conclude, I'd like to take an excerpt by Anna Julia Cooper. Though it was written in reference to the United States, I find it expresses the moral values of a global citizen very well. The cause of freedom is not the cause of a race or a sect, a party or class. It is the cause of humankind, the very birthright of humanity. Thank you.